How's that thing going? Come on, get your ass in the gear. Get that thing out. So I just got down there, called it ball breaker.
Yes,
I don't know why.
And one thing that you blokes share.
Where'd you get that from? Who told you?
Oh, well. I'm doing an Andrew Dent now. We come up with things. Yeah, I just needed something. The same guy said, I've got no dirt on him whatsoever. He is squeaky clean. But I can tell you, he's a pawnbroker. Says he brings me and says, and he says, I'll be round mid-morning, and then you ring him a half an hour later. Are you coming?
That's only because he wants to go to the movies.
Yeah. Now you like share something that's close to our hearts in that you've both raced HQs. Just to share with these people that wonderful experience.
I did have that wonderful experience. I'd never driven an HQ before, race car, that is, and we went to Darwin. And it was the Legions of Motorsport in Darwin, and there was... there was Phil Brock, Peter Brock, John Harvey, Gary Rogers, Kevin Bartlett, Doug Shivers, Ron Harrop, lots of guys. Yeah, Alan Grice.
Gary Rush drove the car.
Gary, it was a fantastic weekend. Yeah, Gary was there. Yeah, Gary Rogers, and they treated us really well, and we all drove in a. It was like an owner and invited driver, you might say.
Yeah.
And we each had a sprint race, and then we both drove together in the feature race. It was terrific. I don't think I've hit as many cars in my life as I did in that.
Spent all weekend walking around apologising.
That's where I got the name Gentleman Jimmy, so I apologise.
Yes. John Goss drove a car that I took up there, and it was just beaten to pulp. And I said, and he said, Graham, they keep running into me. I said, but the dents are all in the front.
Where did you drive, Steve?
Oh yeah, I when I was at Larry Perkins in, I think it was 2002, a Winton 4-hour race for HQs. One of the guys that worked for Larry had an HQ, and he said to me, he said, come up and have a drive, and I was slow as a wet week. He blew me away. He should have had a drive with Larry, I reckon.
No, wonderful car. We all agree.
Mind you, the end result of the race at Darwin, the enduro race, right, which was about an hour or so long, wasn't it? I think it was an hour-long race or more.
Yeah, race, yeah.
Was won by Doug Shivers. He was 75, and the guy used to race motorbike sidecars.
Yeah, right, nice, Gav. That was a nice. There's probably a lot of people that need to go to the toilet.
No.
Jason, we'll wait for you. Go on.
Both Jim and Stephen, the other aspect of motorsport which I've been interested in and you've done very well at is tarmac rally. Would you like to tell us how that challenge sort of compares with circuit racing?
I often explain it by what's the attraction of Tarsia rallying, and I say, well, listen, in New Zealand when you got your licence, right, the first thing you wanted to do was get in your little car and drive it as fast as you could to your girlfriend's place or to your mate's place or whatever. But of course there wasn't, there was no radar then. There was no blowing the bag to check your breathalyzer. So I mean, to be able to come over and rallying and drive your car as fast as you can on the open road was, I couldn't think of anything better, But the other thing is, of course, if you go to a race meeting, you have a practice or two practices, a qualifying, and maybe two races, say, on 3 days. Well, in say Target Tassie, I mean, you've got 5 days, you've got 9 races every day, and each race is on a different track. So that's appealing, but it's the most dangerous thing you can ever do because it's trees and banks and gullies and whatever. But I like it, and I know it sounds funny, but it's more of a relaxing time because you're in with a guy that you like to spend time with. I mean, Barry and I enjoy each other's company. We get along good. We all want to have a beer after the day's over, have a nice meal, have a chat, go to bed, get up next morning, away we go again. But it's relaxing because you can sort of hop in the car and drive to the first special stage, get organised, get your helmet on, give you the countdown, away you go. You race as hard as you can or want to go for whether it be 5 or 30k. Then you get to the end, you slow down, fantastic, take your helmet off, and cruise along, have a chat to the next one. So it's quite a relaxing atmosphere that you're in, although it's, it's a lot harder, I believe, concentration-wise, a lot harder than driving on a racetrack, because you know every bump in the circuit on a racetrack. You don't know what's around the corner, and you're trying hard to go as fast as you can, but you don't know how fast you're going until you get at lunchtime when you compare your times with everyone. You might say, Jesus Christ, I'm going to try a lot harder. Or you think, well, I'm not going too bad. But I really enjoy those rallies, but I probably wouldn't just do one event in place of the racing that I do, but it's an integral part of what I do, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And Steve's had a go.
Yeah, actually, it's maybe something that's a little bit funny. I was lucky for 2 years in a row. I drove with Holden when they released the Monaro. I drove in a 2-car Monaro team down in Tassie with Brocky. He was in one car.
The fuel thing.
Yeah. So they've done the prep. The boys have done the prep work to the cars, and we didn't really go out and actually test them too much. The engines were slightly modified within the regs. Suspension was done, and but of course we were both trying to use the Monaro distance to empty fuel calculation. Okay. And most of the time it was working right. Anyway, we came to the last stage of the day, and it was in a little place called Perth, just down from Symonds Plains, a little town in Symonds Plains. And I got to the start before Pete, because Pete was going better than us, and so we were starting ahead of him on the road. Anyway, we've got into the stage, the last stage of the day. It's a 3.5 kilometre stage through the streets. And we've lined up on the line, distance to empty, 30 k's. Excellent. To the end, no problem. Took off from the line, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Changed to second gear, and and where the start was literally 700 metres from the start of suburbia in town, out on the country road going into the town. So we pulled over, Jerry Bashford, who was my co-driver. We've pulled over, Jesus, what are we going to do? So we've raced up to the farmhouse, and we've got a litre of model aircraft fuel. So we'll put that in. Anyway, so this has taken us probably 10 minutes to get sorted, and our time's blown out. Basically that's finished us for the event. And we take off, so we're cruising through town. We get to the end of the stage, and we find out that Brocky did exactly the same thing, but he got 1.4 kilometres from the start, as PB does. He was, blessed. Pulled over. The guy standing on the corner outside the house happened to have 10 litres of fuel there, and he got to the finish and only lost like 3 or 4 minutes. So, things you do. But actually, another time where it's actually good to be Pete's. Remember, this is 2002, I'm 29 or 28 or whatever it was. And of course everyone thought it was a 2-car Monaro team, but the reality was it was only Pete. We were cruising along there, but everyone wanted to see Pete, and that was great. And we're out in the middle of some back road somewhere, and you're going past all the signs of, go Brocky, go Brocky. And we thought, Jerry and I thought we were pretty lucky on this occasion, because there's some young group of guys and girls on the side of the road, and we've come on. They've got the big sign, "Go Rocky!" and 2 of the girls have left their tops out. There you go. And sometimes it is.
Another question.
Yeah, Jim. You mentioned the javelin piling up soon after the start. I haven't seen a lot of motor racing in the last 10, 15 years because I don't watch American television. But we lost a great mate from this club at Phillip Island with his 260Z in a serious motor racing start. And because I haven't seen it, there may be an answer to this. They have a huge, what do you call it, gantry over the start of Phillip Island. And I think they do it in oval racing in the US, where if something happens up the front, you can't bloody well see it, on goes a red light. I mean, serious red lights, not those kiss-hand red lights around, you know. We might have had our bloke, I would have felt, if we had a serious bright red light and a bloke ready to stamp the button if you'd seen a Di Tommaso or a bloody Lambo stall on the grid, we lost our mate Pete. What do you think of that? Is it being done anywhere?
Well, you know, when you just started talking, I just thought immediately, I thought about it before, in NASCAR, and we're talking back in the 80s and the 90s,
The answer to it.
yep, you had a big yellow light on the dashboard of the car.
Yeah.
And the minute there was any yellow flags,
Bang.
the clerk of the course banged the switch, and every car inside the car had a flashing
Yeah.
orange, yellow light.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. You knew that somewhere there was going to be a problem. They could have that today, I'm sure.
Why not?
Exactly.
What's going on?
Yep. And that would probably save us from an accident as well.
We would have Peter Hall here tonight if that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, down the back there.
Yeah.
It's interesting, I had a chat with the guy when we had the motorsport event. He was involved in Targets and he was talking about having a GPS that actually warned you if there was someone in front or behind that had a problem. Now, what I wanted to ask, Stephen, you had a bit more success in another Monaro at Bathurst with the 24-hour. I'm just wondering, how did that car compare with V8 supercars at the time? Was it enormously more powerful because of less restriction or what? And also, would it have had any potential at the moment?
No, probably wouldn't. I mean, running under the regulations that it had at the time. So the Monaro was built by Gary Rogers, and there were four of us came to drive it, and literally we turned up to Bathurst for the 24-hour. It had done about 300 kilometres of testing. It just was very new, late to get. But it was the first car to run the Hollinger sequential gearbox, and it used a tyre. It used a big Dunlop tyre. And the tyre that it used was actually from the Bentley Group C sports car, or Group C, the prototype sports car that won Le Mans that year. It was a huge tyre, big baggy tyre, and you could not get the thing to oversteer. It had that much grip. The only problem with that car was that in GT production, the regulations that it was built under, you had to homologate your gear ratios. And it was homologated with too short a diff ratio. So it would only do 270 kilometres an hour. And with the big 7-litre engine and the amount of rear grip it had, you could come out of Forest Elbow, and when you got it pointed in the right direction, you could just smash the throttle and keep pulling gears. The problem was, you'd be in 6th gear at 270k before you got to the bottom of the hump to head up the hill, and then you had to feather the throttle off. So, and to add to that, the regulators at the time, because they were so worried about it just dominating the event, they kept pulling back the RPM limit of the car. So we went there, I think initially our rev limit was like 6,700 RPM. But by the time we arrived, we hadn't even used that. That had been dropped back to 6,200. By the time we came to the race, it was 5,700. And then because of the rev limit, there was no point anyway. We were revving it up to about 5,200 and it was still going like a train. So, I mean, in terms of the reliability and the package and the way that the car was designed to do that race, it was fantastic. Like we had a problem early in the race where we had a fuel pickup issue, and the boys had just designed that the pickup pumps, the fuel pumps, everything was mounted on a frame with the fuel cell. So we could do a whole complete fuel system change in about 35 to 40 seconds. You'd have the whole thing in and out change done. So the guys did a really good job with that, and we didn't lose many laps. And then we were able, because the car was so fast, if you had a safety car, you'd race to the front of the queue if you were a couple of laps down. And there was a stage there where we were 3 laps down. But every time the safety car came out, we went to the front of the queue, okay? Got in front of the leader, safety car had come out, back round, picked the lap up. and we kept doing that, and yeah, incredible. But I don't know, to be honest, it probably wouldn't have been the best Le Mans car because you just didn't have that top speed. But it was awesome to drive. At the time in 2002, for all of us that were driving V8 supercars, it had an independent rear end, so it was sort of the first car to have of that type to have an independent rear end. The tyre was unbelievable and sequential gearbox. None of us had really used it before, so it was very cool.
Alan Marks?
Thank you, Graham. Steve, I think you could answer this, but I prefer to ask that at the moment. In your modern day competitors, Jim, who do you rank higher than with John Bowe and Andrew Madecki?
So, sorry, who do I rank higher than them?
Higher, out from the two, which one is better than the other?
I would have to say John Bowe. But I suppose because he drives a lot more cars and a lot more of the time. Andrew's always been a great driver, but no, I think Bowe would slightly shade him. Yeah.
Thank you.
One more.
I was wondering, out of all the cars that both of you have driven, what's the most rewarding? What's the most
Yeah. As the years go by, like the first time I drove with Brock in 1978 in the Tirana, that was unbelievable. That was the best car I'd ever driven. The next year it was better again. Then the Commodores come along, so everything sort of gets better as you go. But probably one of the most rewarding cars was the little M3, because we really weren't that fast down the straight, and it just relied on 8,500 revs in every gear, and you drove it as hard as you physically could, threw it over the curbs, did everything you could just to make the car go around the corners as fast as you could, because it was a very light car compared to the others. So that was probably the most rewarding championship that I drove, I would have to say. But then the GTRs were incredible, and the HR31 Nissan that I drove before the GTR, that was fantastic. That was like a more powerful M3. It was two-wheel drive, 6-cylinder turbocharged engine. The little M3 had 300 horsepower, the Nissan had 450 horsepower, and it was a little bit heavier, but that was a fantastic car. And I own that car myself now, which I'm going to Homebush to give it a run on the next weekend. But I think the M3 was probably the most rewarding car. Sometimes it would take you 5 laps to pass someone. Honestly, you'd have to work away at them, leave it down the straight, you'd catch them in the corners, leave it down the straight, and every time you got to the end, you'd be a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer, and finally you'd pass them. You know, they're amazing little car.
Yeah, probably from my perspective, I've got a few. And very diverse range. The first one is back in the Super Tourer days. Dad and I, we raced together at Bathurst when they had 2 Bathursts. There was the 2-litre version and the V8 version. Well, at the 2-litre version in 1998, Dad drove the Volvo, I drove the Nissan, and we had a good battle all day. But that car was unbelievable. Across the top of the mountain, front-wheel drive, 320 odd horsepower, but absolutely it was a jet. It had the biggest brakes you'd ever seen on it, and it had lots of aerodynamics that kept it, stuck to the road. So that was a great car. Then this year, and I've been running in the Australian GT Championship, and in a Lamborghini, a GT3 spec Lamborghini, and this year I was invited to go with an Australian team and compete at Spa 24-hour race. And that was unbelievable, just to be in amongst, I think there was 60 odd cars on the grid, and the best quality GT field and drivers anywhere in the world on that track in those cars was just, in the middle of the night, was unbelievable. The amount of downforce, the power, they've got good power, 600 horsepower, but the amount of aerodynamic grip and the brakes, so they have ABS and traction control. And you've got all these other little driver aids that you play with inside the car. They're fantastic. But one of my all-time absolutely favourite cars is I built up a little Mark 1 Escort for Classic Adelaide. Dad had come over and done Classic Adelaide a few times. And I always wanted, my first car was an RS2000 Escort, a little red one, 2-door. And I was saying to someone tonight actually that when Dad went and did a couple of rally sprints up in Canberra, he drove Escorts the whole time. I went one time with him. I heard this thing screaming through the forest, and it just always left a bit of an imprint in my mind. One day I'd love to, if I could ever afford to do it, I'd love to build one. So I did. I built one up, and it was for Classic Adelaide. We ran the first year finished third in it. The second year broke a gearbox on the first stage, which was a bummer because it had the second year I put Lucas mechanical fuel injection on it. It had 35 more horsepower and loads more torque. It was going to be a weapon. But that car, seriously, I just can't stop smiling at it. Whenever I drive it, it's got an unbelievable power to weight ratio, 285 horsepower, it weighs 820 kilos, and it's just big fun every time you get into it. And it's just classic rear-wheel drive, sliding, lots of power, and then not only that, I'm going to do those rally events in it, but I've also done tarmac rallies, motor carners, hill climbs, put a hydraulic handbrake, and it turns into an absolute weapon. So it's great fun.
Can I just ask you a question? I've got a question here from a friend, Wheelie, in Tasmania, Wheelie Village, and he actually asked, when's he going? Ask Steve when he's going to use the video escort again, and which events.
I'd love to use it tomorrow. I actually haven't. The last thing I did with it was in 2009. I did the Australian Hill Climb Championships in Gippsland in Melbourne. But it's just been sitting there, and it's disgusting. It's covered in dust, and it's terrible. But I did actually do half an oil change on it 6 months ago. So it's half an oil change. So the oil's out of it. But the problem is it's dry some. And the oil runs from the tank, if you leave it for more than about a month, runs from the tank down into the sump, and then you've got to get the oil back to the tank and then get oil pressure. It's a killer. So, but I do want to give it a run. So I don't know if I'll do any more tarmac rallies in it because it's quite a costly little thing to run, and it needs a lot of time and preparation put into it because it just vibrates. Everything falls off it. You come to. I spent the whole. I missed every dinner event on Classic Adelaide in 2004. I missed because I was working till 1 o'clock in the morning every night, welding exhausts up and fixing alternators and doing all sorts of things. But
we were in a Porsche. We got every one of those for evening meals.
Dean Hosking.
When you first started racing in New Zealand, in this all-comers class, I think there were some really weird cars that were driven, like smaller cars with huge engines, all that sort of thing.
The most famous, you might say, the car we called a Mirari. A Mirari. And it was a low-light Morris Minor body on a Ferrari Monza chassis and wheels. Now what happened, I'll tell you a quick story, but I won't get you too bored, but there was a Monza Ferrari was brought to New Zealand to run the Grand Prix, and it rolled over and killed the driver and caught fire, right? So Ferrari left it here and sold it to a guy. The guy was a used car dealer from Auckland. He'd been racing Chev coupes, and he wanted to build the ultimate, we call them all-comers because whatever you brought along, you could race as long as it passed a very, very simple scrutineering test, which was the scrutineer put his foot in and pushed the brake pedal. And if it had a good pedal, you were right, way to go. So this guy got the Ferrari, the body was completely buggered. He took the motor out of it, sold the engine. He cut the chassis in half, right? Put a 327 Corvette motor in it, shortened it because he had to get the wheels under the guards of the Murray Minor. So it had big 16-inch Ferrari racing wheels, transaxle on the back, and a 327 Corvette motor. No length exhaust pipes, so he stuck them straight out the bonnet. So if you Google it, you'll see it. And it was an absolute weapon. I went down the back straight of Pukekohe, he faster than any car I've ever seen. But when he got to the corners, because he had to shorten it so much, it was like a top. But that was quite weird. We had Mark II Zephyrs with Corvette engines. We had a 58 DeSoto with the fins in the back of them, with dual rear wheels, because the limits of diffs weren't available those days, and he needed traction, so he bolted 4 wheels in the back of it. There was the Lycoming sports car was a famous car, and some of you will know the Lycoming, which was powered by by a Continental aircraft, or my Lycoming engine. But other cars, there was Humber 80s with Jaguar motors in them. There was a Renault Dauphine that had the motor in the Chevy V8 motor in the middle of it, which drove the flywheel faced the driver. So imagine the motor behind the driver, round the other way. It drove up to a V drive, like a boat V drive. So I went through the V drive back, then the drive shaft came back under the motor in the car to the back to the die on rear end. They were innovative guys in New Zealand. And Anglias with V8 motors in them, all sorts. Yeah, really. And it was great days, you know. It was terrific, really was.
Now, Frosty, you've put a lot of work in tonight, so I think you should ask the last question.
Frank Gardner always admired him and did a lot overseas. But when he came back, any of the stories of watching him operate in opposition, away you ran with him, I think, too.
Now, Frank was fantastic, and I met him first of all, basically, in New Zealand at the time. Every Christmas we would have what they call Bay Park Raceway. Any of your Kiwis here heard of Bay Park Raceway? Yep, no one? Okay. The racetrack in Tauranga in New Zealand, and we'd have that on the last weekend of December. Then the International Grand Prix at Pukekohe would be on the 6th, 7th of January. And the promoters would invite drivers to come from Australia to race our sports scene guys. So Frank Gardner had been out, Jamie, Pete Gagan, all the guys have been out at various times. So I've been introduced to Frank, but didn't know him. When we went to Australia in 75, Frank was back from England and driving Bob Jones' Tirana. So I raced against him, and then he built the Corvair. I raced against him in that, and then eventually Gracie got it, and then Frank formed his own team, and I went to drive for him, basically. But he was brilliant, because I never did any testing in any of the BMWs I drove. I never did any testing. Frank did all the testing in the cars, and he would get in the cars and do laps and laps of Amaroo and test the car, and I would come up on the Friday for official practice, and he'd get out of the car and say, okay, he called me young fella because I was younger than him. He said, okay, young fella, hop in, you're away now. And I'd get in the car, and I never once drove any of the cars that wasn't better the next time I drove it. You know what I mean? He was fantastic. But he had a massive career in Europe, and that worked the Ford Motor Company, developed the GT40, not the GT40, the next one, the Mirage. Developed that, and tell you what, he told some brilliant stories. Incredible, yeah. But no, he's a fantastic guy. We never ever had a bad word. Never.
Well, we probably need to wind up because I'm on overtime now. John Bryant, would you like to come up and hand the checks out or whatever happened? It's been fantastic. A real privilege to have you guys here. Entertainment, thank you. Take it away, Luke.
I think it's been a thoroughly entertaining night, and I think we should all show our appreciation for these two gentlemen. I want to thank you all for coming and supporting the HRR, and make sure you're at Malabar Anzac Day next year for our historic race betting. Maybe we've got one of these blokes to come over as well.
Bring the escort.
I wonder if it's legal.
Change the diff ratio.
That would be harder than changing the oil.
2 years to change the oil. Wasn't it?
Anyway, thanks very much everyone for coming, and next time we hope to have KB along as our guest speaker, and we'll just let you know the date. Thanks very much.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, when you've finished doing what you're doing, come back. We're going to draw a raffle. Thank you.